So, honey, how are things? A male voice spoke on the phone. I would say business as usual, Robert, but things are a bit more complicated, Miranda said to her husband. You're not dealing with that Clyde kid again, are you? No, it's different set of clients. Have you heard of the large immediate families? What do you mean, like cheaper by the dozen? Precisely. I'm tending to a family of 13, 10 daughters and one son. 13 kids with a significant divided in gender? That's very odd. You sure he's not adopted? Robert noted. Robert! Miranda hissed. I'm just asking, dear, the man joked. I haven't seen their son in person, as he's currently receiving medical attention, but I'm surprised by the genetic outcome of myself. So far, I've talked with the parents and 6 of their daughters. I was planning on talking with the last few, but it seems I'll have to speak with the boy first. What's his condition? It seems the daughters had gotten into an argument with their brother, who was subjected into harsh beating. Since 9 of the girls were involved, you can imagine on how this went as of now. The boy Lincoln is healing physically, but there is a particular reason why I have to speak with him. If I had to guess, he has serious beef with his siblings over how he was treated. Miranda gave a small snort. Quite the opposite, actually. He's developed, a rather severe case of Syngenesophobia. According to the parents, he can't even be in the same room as his sisters without falling into a panic. This, coupled with the supposed nightmares that he's been having, indicating his condition is getting worse. As such, the family wants me to speak with him so I can help him. Quite quicker than I would have imagined, I was willing to wait until Lincoln had been discharged from the hospital. Well, I feel sorry for that boy already. Hang on, Rico. Take that out of your mouth. You don't know where that's been. Miranda smiled, hearing her son's name. Little Ricky is putting coins in his mouth? Yeah, I wish he stopped doing that. So what were you saying? As such, I've already talked with the parents and had several sisters and deduce of what relationship they had with each other. It's quite clear that the girls are deeply regretful of their actions and are heartbroken by the damage that they have done to their brother. So if they're looking to see me and see if I can help Lincoln and see that his sisters aren't what he thinks they are. How old is that kid, by the way? 11, and before you ask, the girls' ranges from 17 to 4. You know it's been quite a few years since you last had a case like this, and even then, with a smaller average family. That doesn't mean I gotten rusty, Robert, Miranda said in a fake offense. I'm confident in my abilities as a therapist. I already know what the girls are feeling like, and all I need now is to figure out how Lincoln sees them, since it varies between persons. If you say so, dear. Hold on a second. Shuffling sound could be heard on the phone next. The next thing Miranda knew, there was the sound of a small child was heard on the line. Hi, Mommy. Hello, sweetie. How are you? I'm okay. I'm cleaning coins, but Dad says no. Rico, honey, you know you shouldn't put that stuff in your mouth. It's bad. Plus, there's a lot of germs on those coins. What if you get sick or one of them gets stuck in your throat? I know they're dirty, so I can clean them, Rico said happily. Sweetie, just find a wet paper towel and use that, please. Okay. Mommy loves you, dear, Miranda smiled. I love you too, Mommy. With that, Miranda hung up the phone. While the matters weren't pressing as she implied, it still felt nice to catch a break and talk with her own family. Her smile didn't last long as she plotted her next move. Like she told Robert, Miranda planned on seeing Lincoln face to face once he becomes available. He didn't have so much faith over the phone sessions as her opinion, but they didn't seem to have much of a lasting impact. She had seen one of the ones Clyde has said once started seeing how many issues the boy had, and particularly because she was getting annoyed with the constant in-person meetings with Clyde, it didn't seem to help him that much. With Lincoln, but it's possible Miranda might have had a breakthrough. She just needs to gouge out how bad the boy's fear is. Walking back to her office, she just stopped at the addressed Rita, who was standing out in the hall looking through her phone. Excuse me, Miss Loud, is your husband still with your son? As far as I know, he is. Perfect. I'll contact him and ask him to put me on touch with your son so I can see what's going on with him. As far as your daughters are concerned, Miranda paused for a moment. She had 4 left of what she needed to speak with. After I speak with Lincoln, I would like to have a talk with Lynn. She's the last of the older ones. Given her outburst, I feel that I should put her right in front of the twins to address any potential issues she may have. Rita nodded. Lynn has a very pretty competitive streak in her, so I believe that comes from her father. He used to be quite of a sportsman back in the day, though at times she gets a bit too competitive. Noted. I'll see what I can do. The Latin woman walked through the door and went to her office. Sitting down at the desk, she picked up the office notes and scrolled through the received calls list until she saw the number she was looking for. Lynn Sr. was watching cartoons with his son and the latter while eating lunch was brought up to him from the clinic's kitchen. No longer having mouth pains, Lincoln can now afford to begin chewing solid foods. As such as he asked for some chicken along with green beans and applesauce. Said poultry was a bit warm when he finally got up to him. Something that irritated Lynn. For once that place was supposed to be cared for patients. They sure had a lousy way of delivering food after a long while, after it would have been the ideal temperature to eat. Even taking the smaller piece, the father frowned at how stale it tasted, little seasoning or lack thereof. He made a mental note to speak with whoever ran the kitchen to try to make them better foods, and also have a serious note to take Lincoln some real food once he was discharged. Feeling his phone vibrate in his pocket, Lynn took it out and was confused by the number. Ms. Lopez? He asked to no one in particular, causing Lincoln to look at him in confusion. Sorry, sport, give me a second, the partridge answered. Hello? Hello, Mr. Loud. I've been informed from the rest of your family that Lincoln's condition seems to be getting worse due to the frequent night terrors. While I had originally been planning on to speak with him once he's available, your daughters have requested that I do over-the-phone session to help him. While I don't exactly have much faith in those sessions, I felt it would be a good idea to hear your son's thoughts. Is he currently with you? Yes, he's eating lunch at the moment. Oh, Miranda said a little dejectedly. I can call back later if you... Lynn's eyes widened. No. It's fine. The food here isn't exactly great anyways. Give me a second. Dad, who are you talking to? Lincoln asked, his mouth half full. Son, remember when I said that you're going to get some help? Well, you're about to speak with the professional therapist concerning your fears. We know you're afraid of your sisters, and they have been speaking yesterday since about everything that's happened. She's not only spoke with me and your mother, but also spoke to a number of your siblings. Not sure about what they've spoken of, but it seemed to be more trouble than they let go on how they acted since. I know this probably is a lot to take in, but professional will help you with anything you need. So don't be afraid to let your thoughts flow, okay? Okay, Lincoln replied, a little nervous. The fact that this therapist had already spoken with the girls put Lincoln on edge. A part of him thinking that the girls might have twisted their words to make it seem like it was wrong about something. Was this about the doctor going through to make him feel worse than he already did? Or possibly tell him that the girls were right the whole time, and to make him understand was his fault? Lincoln didn't outright trust the professional, but he did trust his word on his parents, who were doing everything in their power to help him. Lincoln hesitantly grabbed his father's phone. Hello? Hi, am I speaking with Lincoln Loud? A female voice responded. Yes. Hi, Lincoln. My name is Dr. Lopez. How are you today? Dr. Lopez? Wait, you're the therapist that my friend Clyde sees a lot, right? Yes, that would be correct. Okay, that's good to know, Lincoln said, calming down. Oh, sorry I haven't answered your question. As of right now, I'm okay, I guess. I mean, my arm is healing nicely, and I've gotten a little used to walking again. Some of my friends have visited me over the week, and it was nice to see them too. That's very pleasant to know. It's always joyful to have an acquaintances and visiting. So is there anything you're currently having issues with? Well, Lincoln can shift it a bit in his bed a bit. It's a bit complicated. I'm not going to get in trouble for it, about talking about it, am I? Oh, heavens, no. I am just here to help. Now, from what I understand from your parents, you've been having night terrors as of late, and they're making you feel certain ways towards some of your members of your family. Would it be okay if we discussed them?" The boy silently for a moment. He wasn't fond going over the nightmares that plagued his sleep for the last 7 days, especially with how terrifying they were. But Lopez did say that she was there to help him get through this. So what limited knowledge for the therapy he knew from Clyde, she'd probably tell him that the fear was just a figment of brains, just to make up the defense mechanism, or at least something similar. Lincoln looked over at his father, who gave him a warm smile in return. The boy sighed a bit. "Yes, it would. So to start, I'll let you know that this information can be kept between us, as I will not tell a soul about this or discuss it unless you want it. You are, however, free to talk about our sessions on your own. Sound good?" "Yes." Lincoln looked at his father. Dad, I hate to ask, but don't worry, sport. I understand. I'll be watching from the window." Lynn got up and exited the room. Seconds later, Lincoln could see him peeking through the glass. "Now tell me, when do these nightmares begin?" "They started the same day I ended up in the hospital." "Can you describe what names of the premises your dreams were about?" "It was about my sisters, and they were trying to kill me." Miranda jotted down notes on her end. "Well, that's pretty straightforward," she muttered to herself. "Has this been a recurring issue going on?" It has been for every time I fall asleep. I get one regarding some bad incident that happened in the past. The last one I had was probably the most horrible one I've had so far." "Interesting. Have you always had bad moments with your sisters?" While Miranda knew this wasn't true, she wanted to know how Lincoln thought of this. "Not all the time." Lincoln pushed back the desk, holding his food tray aside as he lay down on the bed. "But after what happened last Sunday, I'm not sure. They always seem to get along well. And since I'm the only other guy in the house, I just feel like the odd one out, you know. I've done some things in the past that angered my sisters, and we do get into fights sometimes, but it was never this bad." The doctor here sniffling on the other line. I thought that they wouldn't stop until I was no longer breathing." Lincoln then started to cry softly on the phone, which tugged at Miranda's heartstrings. I'm sorry to hear that. For the last several days, I've kept having nightmares about becoming a reality. 9 of my sisters finding and succeeding in finishing the job. Because of my screw ups, I've humiliated them once just to get a trophy. I fought them over the car seat, clogged up the toilet numerous times. I cursed at my older sister just because she sat on my game goggles. Stopped doing my chores all because I was getting the worst one. Clean up after the pets is probably the worst than taking out the trash. I even tried to get out of football practice when my mom signed me up for it, all because I was too lazy to exercise. As a result, my sister Lynn got her ankles sprained." Miranda listened intentionally at what Lincoln was saying in a trad of self-hate, describing the moments where he had been a jerk to his sisters. Such examples were making the girls tone down their power usage when he couldn't do the same thing. Stealing Lynn's bike all because that he didn't want to be embarrassing with a hand-me-down that he got from Lori. Kicking the girls out of the pool he bought just because he couldn't use it. At the time he made his sisters dressed up for the family photo. The time that he and his sisters waited on him for a hand on foot because he couldn't decide what place they could go to for vacation. The doctors could see right away that Lincoln wasn't sane, much like the rest of his sisters. But however, though some of the info that he gave her seemed off. From what she recalled of speaking with some of the girls, some of the events that he described were when he was only limiting influence, or if it was him entirely, he made up for it. After thinking about all that up to this point, I feel like I deserved of what happened. I have been nothing but such an idiot who gets in the way of my sister's talents and traits. They're all good at something, but me, all I do is read comics and play video games. Lincoln sniffled again. "That's probably what they did why they wanted to get rid of the only person who's useless in the house. I'm so afraid of them. Anytime I see one of them, I get reminded of my dreams. Lincoln set his phone down and grabbed a tissue. His nose was getting runny and had to wipe his eyes dry. In the hallway, Lynn couldn't understand what his son was talking about, but given the 11-year-old's sad expressions, it couldn't be anything good. This beating clearly mentally scared the poor boy. To think that his sisters would want to murder him, that's why he has the case of strong reaction to them. And when they were near, or on top of that, said fear is feeding into self-deprecation. The psychologist thought, looking down at her notes. She glanced at the number 9 for a moment. Didn't Lincoln have 10 sisters? Well, if there was one he had a negative reaction to. Mind if we backtrack for a moment, Lincoln? When you described your nightmares, you said 9 of your siblings are involved. But if I recall, you said you have 10. Is there one that you aren't afraid of? Well, there's Lily. She's the baby of the family, and I don't think she'll ever do anything to hurt me because she's too young. And because of that, I doubt she'll be able to help me. She has been there for you since the situation began. Yes, she has. Well, it seems that she's helping you the best she can, despite her being an infant. She wants to see her brother get well. In fact, the rest of your sisters do as well. This may be hard to believe due to your nightmares, but as you may not trust me, since I have spoken to them. But your sisters who aren't you think they are. They have been trying to make amends with you for what happened, but it seems that your fears have prevented you from seeing that. Dreams can often alter one perception into the reality of believing in a certain way, but that doesn't mean that it happened in your dream is actual reality. While it is possible that dreams can be viewpoints in the future, they should not be taken to face value. Lincoln remained silent for a moment. I'm a little confused by that. What I mean is, just because something happened in the dream, it doesn't make it real. And as well as a matter of an idea being in our heads. I understand your fears of your sisters wanting to hurt you again, but I can assure you that's the furthest thing from our minds. You say that, but I'm not sure if I'm good enough. At times I just think it's a ruse to make me think that that's why they want me to get in, as I least expected. I had a few nightmares where one of my sisters apologized, only to seriously wound me up a moment later. Such one dream I had involved Luna playing her guitar so loud that I felt my head would explode. I I couldn't hear anything in my dream afterwards. Next thing I know, I was smearing in the pain in the back of my head because she bashed my skull with said instrument. But I was so thankful I was still hearing when I woke up, although my head was hurting afterwards. I understand that. It's just something I want you to think about. It is important to remember that fear is the concept that existed in our minds. Sometimes such fears like yours can be rational, while others can be irrational. It exists primarily in the defensive mechanism in our brains to warn us of danger. Such examples such as people being afraid of spiders or snakes, even when they are harmless. Whatever we choose to believe in them is entirely based on choice. Sometimes I fear my son might have a coin stuck in his throat, but I ignored it by not telling it to get to me because I put him in change in his pocket. But you have the option of not letting your nightmares get to you. It's never too late to let go of your fears. Lincoln didn't respond, thinking about what Dr. Lopez just told him. Could all of this be in his head? Were his sisters all really trying to apologize to him for the whole time for beating him up? They also did bring him a chocolate cake with them a few days ago. Lincoln wasn't a big fan of chocolate like his sisters, but wouldn't have turned down a treat like that like any other situation. He never got the chance to enjoy it since he flipped all of his sisters for being there at once. However, despite Miranda's rationale, he couldn't help but taking her advice to heart. Lincoln was hurt mentally, and his dreams felt so vividly real that it was hard for him to accept her advice. Still, it was still very sound advice, and it felt wrong just to deny her statements. Lincoln was hurt mentally, but of course, he couldn't deny her statements. Thank you, Miss Lopez, but it's just, I'll think about it. Lincoln finally spoke. Please do, Lincoln. I'm here for you if you need someone to talk with. I can be sure we can meet you in person once you become available. I don't exactly have faith in phone sessions, Miranda beamed. Yeah, I would like to talk with you again. Clyde said that a lot of great things about you, and he wasn't lying. But can I ask you a favor? Sure. Lincoln then looked at the window to see his dad was still watching him. He covered the receiver with his hand just to whisper to it. Please don't tell my parents what I dreamed of my sister's doing. Feel worried enough already it is. You'll have my word, Lincoln. I won't utter a word to anyone. But I must ask, will you tell them at some point? Still there was silence met at both ends. Miranda was waiting for Lincoln to answer, and the middle child was thinking it over. If he really wanted help from his family especially, he'd have to let them know what's really going on with him. He could only imagine how heartbreaking his mother and Lily would be if he had told them the truth. As far as they knew, he just had bad dreams about the other girls, not the severity of their situation. The only thing Lincoln told his dad was that the dreams he was having were getting worse, which brought up the current conversation. Maybe opening more would be beneficial than keeping a closed mouth shut. I will, Lincoln told her. Noted. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Lincoln did have a few other things in mind, but he didn't think he would be comfortable discussing them with his current setting. Not only that, his dad's phone was feeling unusually warm on his ear, and he was getting tired of having to crane his neck or hold it in his hand. No. Okay, well, I thank you for your time. I'll speak with you again in a later date. Just let me know when you want to talk. My phone is always open. Okay, thank you. After that, the line went dead. The chip-toothed male stared at the device what felt like an eternity. Lost in his own thoughts, his head was swimming in a heated discussion that probably mirrored some of the congressional session. His fear, guilt, common sense, and some added rationale were all voicing their decisions, and it was beginning to give him a headache. One thing was certain, though. Lincoln couldn't decide whether he should be afraid of his sisters or try to forgive them, and the part of him still felt like a Philistine, as Lola would call him, but at the same time, Dr. Lopez's words pierced him like a bullet, making him see things that he hadn't thought about until now. A knock on the door got his attention. Hey, sport, you done yet? He had to go use the can, Lynn said as he poked his head in. Seeing the son was no longer on the phone, he took that as a yes. So, how did it go? It was okay for the most part. Anything you want to talk about? Lincoln shook his head. He looked at the remainder of his lunch. Can you throw away my food, Dad? I'm not really that hungry anymore. Sure. Still can't believe they don't have decent cooks around here. Lynn grabbed the tray and dumped the contents in the trash, leaving only the tray on the desk for the nurse to come and claim later. How about for dinner, your old man brings you some quality cooking? The Partridge ruffled his son's hair. The 11-year-old boy gave his father a small smile. That would be nice. Miranda looked over the notes taken from Lori, Lisa, Lenny, and Luna. So it seems like Lincoln is retroactively blaming himself for the incidents while he only partially played a role, and that's definitely something I'll discuss with him when I get the chance. Still can't believe he thinks his sisters would want to kill him. Then again, he's only 11, which only makes it easy to understand why his fears amplifying his guilt. I'm starting to think that it's not the being itself that has Lincoln so jumpy, but some more so the night terrors that he's been having since then. And this has been going on for a week? Ugh, got to work with, the doctor said to no one in particular. The good thing is that she's sexually gauged at the stage of fears that Lincoln is currently at. There are 4 stages in the progression of fear: stress, anxiety, and avoidance, and reinforcement. With Lincoln's nightmares and his reactions to his sisters, he's currently at stage 2. However, Miranda predicts that he'll be at stage 3 when he's released from the hospital. If it hadn't progressed any further, he'll be given the time to reinforce his fears to potentially sever whatever ties he had with his siblings. Something the doctor doesn't really want to happen. In some cases, other psychologists would say that Lincoln's already at stage 4, where he's created memories that are slightly deeply altered from what they are. Said memories would be in instances where his sisters would stress him out, thus increasing their reasoning to avoid them. This seems to be the case given the panic attacks. However, Miranda believes Lincoln isn't that far down the road yet. Taking her pen, and she made a note to talk with Lincoln, explained the concepts of near fervor. Drawing her attention away from the yelling boy, Miranda looked ready for the next person who she was ready to speak with. From what the therapist knew, Lynn Jr. was described as the more athletic and sporty of the kids. With this in mind, Miranda also assumed that this made the girl edgy and competitive, as Rita noted, possibly a small ego and to boot, and it was something uncommon for people with sports to boast about in their skills. The other Loud sisters didn't speak too much about her, as she wasn't the main focus, but the doctors also assumed that Lynn was a bit aggressive, given her stance when she walked out of the office to make a phone call. Miranda tapped her desk on a phone. Gigi, can you ask Lynn Jr. to come to my office? I like to have a chat with her. Yeah, give me a sec. The Hispanic woman could hear the lady's voice call from the speaker. Which one of you is Lynn Loud Jr.? The doctor wants to see you. Seconds later, the door opened. Lynn was a bit more relaxed but she previously was, but the Jacques didn't expect to be called. She played the rock, paper, scissors with Lucy and the twins who had been seen next with Lana winning. She did her best not to let the loss bug of her too much. This was just to have therapy. But Lynn wanted to get this session over with, just as was building up her anxiety, just sitting there for hours, not much of doing anything. As such, Lynn was both surprised and relieved when Rita told her that she'd be next. After Miss Lopez spoke with Lincoln, that part made the brunette nervous. She wondered what Lincoln had said to the doctor, thinking he may have brought up all the times that she had been rough with him, and revealed that she broke one of his arms. She already felt guilty enough for her damaging her brother in such a fashion, which was amplified given how Lincoln was outright terrified of her now. Lynn already had her ass kicked by Ronnie Ann. Polly and Margot refused to speak with her, so the last thing she needed was the doctor to guilt trip her even more. Hello, Lynn. How are you feeling today? Miranda started. Like the rest of my sisters. Pretty crappy, Lynn replied, sitting on the lounging chair.